Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I love to have you. Today we're going to be looking at the fat bride. Her name is Hannah. Apparently, she's going to be ranting about former fats hating fats. So I have to look at this because it's just kind of like a classic topic. It's always going to be interesting to me. I want to see what she says. I like to see the cope, and I want to go ahead and talk about it. So let's go. The text on the screen says, what the weight loss community could learn from the addiction recovery community, former fats hating fats edition. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it is in fat acceptance. Okay, let's go.
Here's what the weight loss community could learn from the addiction recovery community. So I am fat. I've lost a lot of weight and put it back on in the past. I also get a lot of comments from former fat people being real nasty and fat phobic towards me. My fiance is a recovering alcoholic, so he's quite involved in like the addiction recovery community. And when I have talked to him about the way that people are so nasty to me in my comments here, he's always really surprised. And he's surprised because he's like, what I don't understand is that if you kind of get to the core of this, you can liken being fat or overeating or like whatever you want to call it to the addiction community, right? To being an alcoholic or whatever. And yeah.
No, it doesn't work. Within alcoholism, there's a physical addiction. Within food, it's purely psychological. So that makes it an extremely different thing. People that have experienced it understand that. So I think it's really important to understand that it's not going to be judged the same because they're totally different. And people will say, oh, well, we depend on food to live. Sure, but you also get full. An alcoholic doesn't ever really have to stop, if that makes any sense. There isn't that kind of barrier there. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't get full when I eat. Yeah, that's because there's a hormonal problem. You have a health issue. That's not normal. That's not something you should just accept. So again, that's why we don't accept fatness on this channel. I don't believe in fat acceptance, period. Zero. Nothing. No. We don't accept hypothyroidism, diabetes, PCOS. We don't accept hormonal conditions leading to increased hunger and or insatiability. We don't accept those things. But again, alcoholism is different. It's very different. It's just a totally different thing than like being hypothyroid. It's totally different. The psychological side of food issues, toxic ritualistic behaviors, E followed by the letter D, all of that, that's purely mental. So people are going to view it differently. Do you think that being super sweet and nice all the time about extreme mental delusions is actually going to help everybody that has them? Not necessarily. Now, I do honestly believe that managing anxiety is really, really important when it comes to this issue. So I do make sure to monitor my tone in these kinds of things. But the words I say at times can be quite harsh. They are meant to shatter mental matrices of toxic ritualistic mindsets and behaviors, because you can't be nice to those thoughts. They're not good. They're trash. They're awful. There's no merit in them. It's a chain email. It's a TikTok that says if you scroll up, you're going to have bad luck for 7 years. That's the kind of stuff that thought process is. You can't play nice with that. It doesn't work. It just doesn't. So again, people are going to intuitively understand that it's two different things. That's all. Let's see what else she has to say.
Yet the way that people in those communities behave is so drastically different. And why is that? And so we were talking about how, you know, if you were a recovering alcoholic and you saw someone who was still really in the grips of addiction, that you would feel a real compassion for them. You would understand them. You'd have this real empathy for the struggles that they have, and you would.
Not everybody feels that way about alcoholism, and not everybody feels that way about people who are in active, you know what. There's a lot of judgment. I think that you're just ignoring the judgment that goes on in that space, or just in general by society. I think you're ignoring it because you are only caring about your issue. That's what I'm seeing there, because that's not true. I think maybe she's saying the community itself, like, sure, they're very nice, but it's also like you have to understand you're fighting a physical addiction. So your body is quite literally fighting against you quitting alcohol. It's different. That doesn't happen with food. I don't care what people say. I don't go along with it. It is a toxic ritualistic mindset to think that you are addicted to food. It's not true. I don't go with it. The science is not there. It isn't there, you guys. Look it up. It's not real. It's psychological. So you're only fighting your own mind. And you need to understand that. Other than that, you have a physical issue that needs to be treated or dealt with. That's it. That's it. So it's a very different thing. There can be emotions, there can be issues behind it, there can be psychological conversations that have to be had. You can need to see a therapist. You can need to do a lot of stuff for E followed by the letter D. You can do a lot of work. There's trauma involved in that. It doesn't just spontaneously happen. There's a reason that it happens. It's not a choice to develop it, but it is a choice to keep it. And you have to be very harsh with those mindsets to stop it, because you're only fighting your mind. And because of that, people don't think it's as threatening. So they won't fight it if they aren't harsh with it. That's the problem. Alcoholism, you have to fight your body too. So you can only fight so much. You have to prioritize a lot towards fighting your body on it. And then you fight the mind too, but it's different. A lot of your energy goes towards a physical dependency on a substance. It's different. This is so frustrating.
Would not hate them or chastise them, but want them to be better, and like want to help them and want to show them compassion and understanding, and to not bully them about it, basically, to not be nasty. Whereas when someone has lost weight and they see a fat person, they're like, ugh, disgusting, I did it, you should do it too. And here's what we, as a community of fat people, former fat people, whatever, could.
I don't think you should tell somebody they're disgusting. I think that that's kind of stupid. But I don't agree. You know, the thing is, in which she's not necessarily understanding, is a lot of people that lose weight, they're not exactly out of toxic ritualistic mindsets. They just shift. They can shift to another one, or they can even just be in a cycle. You know, when we talk about the one where you eat too much, a lot of times people, they do not eat as much for a while, lose weight, and then they eat a lot again and they gain it back. This is probably her experience, if I'm honest. If I had to guess, I'd say there's at least an 80% chance that that is her experience. That's something that a lot of people who have lost weight are still sometimes struggling with because they don't deal with the root of the issue. So then they project it, which is a symptom you project onto other people, and that's where that comes from. So I would never suggest doing that. Most of the people who used to be fat on my channel, they don't do that. A lot of people don't. I don't plan on doing it because it's too superficial for me personally. It's like, I don't know. It just seems so juvenile, to me. So I wouldn't do it. I don't think you should do it. You're not helping the person. I care more about helping somebody that's fat, or at the very least not harming or not pushing them further down a direction. And I told you guys, I never want to be the cause of anxiety towards just a general fat person in the world. When it comes to fighting the toxic ritualistic mindsets or the fat acceptance rhetoric, though, I will cause anxiety for those purposes. But in general, no. And I don't talk about appearance. I typically don't. It's on rare occasion, unless if it's a very specific topic within the video. Like when William was talking about how he wasn't pretty anymore, then yes, I will comment on his appearance because he's literally talking about it. But otherwise, no. Okay?
Really learn from the addiction community, it is that when we lose weight, we do so in a hateful and shameful way. We do not show ourselves compassion.
Okay. It has to be... It's not that it has to be compassionate. This pisses me off. I'm sorry. She's starting to make me mad. Because it doesn't work. And I'm going to tell you, it hasn't worked for you. I'm telling you. Being soft and gushy when it comes to the fatness issue doesn't help. But being hellfire and brimstone, in my opinion, also doesn't help. So how do we approach weight loss? What is the emotional pitch of weight loss? It's cold and calculated. When you think about losing weight, you should think about it in the coldest way possible, the most dispassionate way. It should be a cold and practical decision. It should never be super, super emotional. You don't have to show massive compassion to yourself. You just don't make an excuse. You say, the math equation doesn't equate here. If I'm not doing this, then I'm not going to get this result. End of sentence. That's it. Not, oh, I'm an amazing or a horrible person for that. No, it's a bunch of BS. You don't even go there. It's just, I'm not putting in the effort. I'm not going to get the result. And you strategize. You make a calculated decision over and over again. That's how it's done, because you want to keep it objective. And I would even suggest having hard number measurements, testing body fat percentage, all these types of things to keep it as objective as possible. Because your way of being super compassionate with yourself, it doesn't work. It becomes an excuse. And when people freak out and hate their bodies and do all this stuff, it also doesn't work, because you can create anxiety and it can create more of a fixation, which is not getting out of the main psychological issue. It's just another aspect of it. You're not actually getting out of it. Getting out of it is not having any emotion about it. That's getting out of it. Not having any emotion, because it's not emotional. All of it is fake. When you have these magical beliefs about weight loss, when you have this stuff, I don't know what's happening. Oh, I don't even know. It's bullshit. It's bull. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, honey, oh gosh, you have all this, I know you don't understand why you're not losing. I'm not going to do that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You just say, hey, you likely have a hormonal issue. You have all these symptoms. Why don't you get treatment? Well, because find a way to get treatment. Figure it out. See what options you have. See anything you can do to help the issue. Well, anything you can do to help the issue. See, cold. No excuses. It's the same thing with the psychological side. Oh, well, I have all these problems, and oh my gosh, and all this stuff happened in the past, and oh, and I've done this before, and I failed, and I don't know, and da da da. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with how you should eat. That's what I would say to somebody like that. It has no effect on how you eat or how you should eat. There's no connection there. Not really. Just have your anxiety and deal with the anxiety, but you don't have to engage in certain behaviors due to the anxiety. That's a false belief. And if you say you have to, that's a lie. You're lying. That's what it is. You can't quite have that approach with alcoholism. It's not exactly the same. It's not exactly the same. But I have argued a lot, and I will continue to argue. The more we emotionalize the issue of weight, the worse it gets. It's putting emotion where it doesn't belong. It isn't emotional. It isn't.
Fuel weight loss efforts with this idea that we are going to be ashamed of ourselves and humiliated.
No, don't agree with that either. That's also an emotion.
If we don't lose the weight, that we have made a mistake that we need to be punished for, that we are...
It's another emotion. It's guilt.
Morally bereft in some way, that we are weak and broken and terrible people and we need to fix that. Whereas, if you were recovering from addiction, you would do so with compassion. You would forgive yourself. You would acknowledge why you did it and understand that. You would feel compassion for other people and you would share that with other people, and you would be like, yeah, it's really awful, but like, I understand how we got here. And you wouldn't shame yourself.
Like I said though, the mindsets are too sticky. You can't just be like, I understand why you feel that way. That's not going to be enough. I'm sorry. It's not going to be enough. I understand why you feel that way, but it's still bullshit. That's what you have to do. That's what works. It still isn't true. It's false. It's a lie. But I understand why you think that, but it's not true. There has to be a bit more of a punch to it. That's all I'm trying to say.
For the mistakes that you made in the past, you would forgive yourself and you would...
It's a very sticky thing. And I don't think she's necessarily aware of that, of how sticky it is, but it is sticky. So you have to be harsh with it to actually get out of it. You have to say, no, that's bullshit. No, that's not true. That's not going to work. This has never worked. This cycle has never yielded anything. I'm not doing it again. That's how you have to talk to yourself. You have to fight with your thoughts because they're not real. This is delusional. I'm being delusional right now. This is delusion. You see? If I sit there and, oh, Alex, well, you feel this way because of this, that, and the other, and it's not helpful. It's, no, that's not true. That's not real. I'm not engaging in that. I'm not listening to that. I'm not doing that. No. That's what it is. It's not helpful. You don't have to, and then you don't make it about yourself either, because you don't have to. Again, I'm going to keep it real with you guys. You can hate yourself without it connecting to how you ingest things that you buy at the grocery store. They're not actually connected. It's a separate issue. It needs to be dealt with, but it's a separate thing. And to act like it's one and the same, it's gaslighting yourself. It's not one and the same. I still struggle with anxiety, and I haven't binged in 4 years. Is the anxiety gone? No. But there's zero connection, which means I'm in remission. Period. And I can work on anxiety. A lot of my anxiety comes from hypothyroidism that I still have, even if it's less severe. I have to continue to lose the weight to get in a better position with my hypothyroidism, and my anxiety will probably go away for the most part. Not completely, but for the most part, it will probably be a lot less intense and a lot more manageable. And other than that, I just face things. When you face things, exposure therapy, it really helps with anxiety. I had a lot of anxiety over my car this year, and I have faced it. I took my car to the car place, right? I'm having anxiety. I'm not listening to the anxiety. I'm taking care of business. I'm doing it. It's done. Now, this huge source of anxiety is over because I faced it. That's how you deal with anxiety. You don't deal with it by a toxic cycle of either eating too much, not eating enough, or fixating on the way you look. Doesn't work. That wasn't going to fix my car. I know that's a shocking statement, but it wasn't going to. But when you're in the delusion, you, on a deep level, feel that it will help, and it doesn't. It never will help. It will never, ever, ever help. And I need you to hear that. It is never going to help you. It will only ever make things worse. It will never, ever help you. Ever. Not once, not twice, never. It has never helped you. It's never going to help you. That's it. End of sentence. Period. You see? You can't be nice to those thoughts. You can't give it an inch because it's all bullshit. It's wrong.
Show yourself compassion, and that means that you are able to show other people compassion. You are nurtured through that process by yourself and other people, whereas when we lose weight, we are punished through that process. This is what I think the problem is with the weight loss community. I don't care if you lose weight.
Most people are not punished through the weight loss process. That's not true. There are psychological side effects of weight loss, though, which we talk about, and it's becoming more clear as they're doing studies with Ozempic use. A lot of the symptoms that people have with Ozempic, I have also experienced not using Ozempic and losing weight. So a lot of those side effects are weight loss side effects, including some mental health side effects, especially from a super morbidly obese place. So losing weight is a little different because it is a struggle because of the hormones involved in losing the weight at a huge size. Those effects can be really, really drastic at that size. And so there are weight loss side effects, which people can perceive as similar to a withdrawal, but it's not actually the same thing. So some of it could be a perception. Some of it may not be a perception. But again, it's not the same thing as alcoholism. It's different. It's a totally different process. It's totally different. And I think we need to stop conflating obesity and, the letter B followed by the letter E followed by the letter D with everything else and anything else, from white supremacy to alcoholism to anything. We will compare it to anything but what it is. And we need to keep it what it is, because conflating fatness, obesity, toxic ritualistic, all of it with everything else, it has not helped the issue. It's made it so unclear, so confusing. I've heard fat activists compare losing weight to conversion therapy. That is insane. It's not similar at all. It's a completely different process with completely different outcomes. There's nothing similar about it. But when it comes to this issue, there is an underlying motivation in toxic ritualistic mindsets to not allow the issue to be discussed. And I will not allow you to do that, because I don't listen to your disordered way of thinking. And neither should any of you. You shouldn't let this happen. It doesn't help. It gets worse. You're making it more confusing. I don't care if you lose weight or you don't lose weight. Well, big whoop. What's the point of even saying that? That's a neutral, that's what people would assume. So why do you even have to say it? It's stupid.
Or you don't lose weight. If you lose weight, I'm so happy for you, because of course, the world is going to be easier for you. Fat phobia is a real thing.
Is that true? I would say it's going to be different. That's what I would say. I don't think it's good to set up those expectations, because they're not true for everybody. And people don't focus on the same things. And that's okay. Some ways it'll be better, some ways it'll be worse. But guess what? You're going to be healthier. It's better for your health. You're going to have an easier time fulfilling your goals. You're going to have an easier time with your aspirations. You're going to have an easier time with your relationships, especially if you're super morbid obese, because it does affect your relationships, because it changes you. That's all true. But is everything going to be rainbows and sunshine once you've lost the weight? Hell no. And I don't want you to expect it, because honestly, a lot of losing weight from a very big size is having to pick up slack and catch up and figure shit out that you haven't dealt with. That's what a lot of it is from a very big size. And a lot of times, even practical concerns, financial concerns, a lot of those types of things. You're trying to catch up or pick things up. There's a lot of responsibility in recovery, but guess what? It's still better. But it isn't rainbows and sunshine. It's still better though. I'd rather struggle to be digging myself out of poverty than struggle every day to breathe. I think that's what we have to think about here. It's tough, but there's hope. There is hope, I think it's going to turn around for me. But I've had to work constantly, endlessly, it's been tough. But it's I'm more able to do it because I've lost the weight. So I can catch up eventually. I see the light at the end of the tunnel in a lot of different ways in my life. But I have worked my ass off, and I still have a long way to go. But that's the reality of it. It is better, but it isn't perfect. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily easier. I think it's easier to just not fight your toxic mindsets and just stay the same. I think what you're doing is easier. So don't ever say that to somebody who has done the work. Stupid.
This is my big fat beard.
Hold up. Something happened. I think I tripped it out. 1 second. Sorry, I think I scrolled on accident. Not me having a boomer moment with TikTok. Sorry about that. I was too passionate, so I got like triggered.
Fat phobia is a real thing. You don't have to deal with that.
It has to do with E followed by the letter D. That's what it is. But again, we don't want to talk about the issue. So sure, it's fat phobia. It's fat phobia, but only in specific people that have issues. Okay, sure.
If you can earn more money and fit into clothes on the high street, amazing. Completely understand where you want it. And if you don't want to lose weight, completely understand that too, because if you have weight cycled before, if you put the weight on, like again, blah, 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 like I completely get it. And that's where I am at. But whether or not you want to lose weight, there is a real problem in our community of like fat people, weight loss, whatever, like this fat positive community.
So she's saying she doesn't want to. So what is the point?
Having former fat people come in and be real horrible about us. There's a real...
I think people comment negatively towards you because you're not being logical. You're not making sense. Like I'm listening to you and you are not making sense, and it's irritating me. And when people get irritated, then they get kind of sassy. So I'm giving you, that's a little bit of personal. It's a personal feedback. You're not making sense, and you're really thinking that you're making sense. As Gen Z would say, you're really thinking that you're eating, but you're not. You're not.
Shame around this. There's a real lack of compassion and empathy, and this is because former fat people lost the weight by hating themselves.
Not all. You cannot assume that about everybody. It's not true. There are so many people that say they lost it because they love themselves. You don't know how every single person that has lost weight lost it. I agree that some do, but a lot don't. I wouldn't suggest it because it's unstable. It puts you at risk to relapse. I will tell you that. Doesn't mean that you have to relapse if you did, but I wouldn't suggest it. You're at more of a risk. And if you do hate yourself post weight loss, I would really deal with that and stop the fixation, because the more you fixate, the more likely you are to relapse. I'm going to keep it real with you.
Fatness by telling themselves that they are a failure and they have to be punished.
Fatness doesn't have to be demonized. It's a horrible thing. It's awful, especially when you're super morbidly obese. It is horrible. It is a scourge of humanity. It's a horrible experience. I know it's a horrible experience. You can't lie to me. I lived it. And I got out of it, and it's way better outside. So don't even. That's another reason why former fat people, I'm still fat, and I'm starting to not be able to stand you. Because this logic is so maddening. And it's just a failed mindset that will never, ever work. And you're stuck in it on a loop. It's wild.
Order to lose the weight, right? They didn't learn to feel compassionate for themselves. They didn't learn empathy for themselves. They didn't learn to be okay with the fact that they were fat, their fat selves. And so, of course, when they see other fat people, they have all this hatred that they built up in themselves that they use to fuel their efforts. And so that comes spilling out of them. And also they feel like they have gained some kind of like social cachet by being thin now. And they want to keep us fat people down because it...
Sorry. Stop it. Oh my God, you guys, this is so ridiculous. I don't think anything she's saying is true. I think we're reaching a point here where none of it is true. We're getting to like, this is all projection. Project. You don't know. You don't know. Most people don't think that way. Even people who have lost weight, typically they want to pretend they were never fat, and they just don't ever think about it, or they try not to think about it, which I mean, that's fine. I don't really care. That doesn't bother me that much. If that's your strategy, I don't really care. That's not what I'm doing. Again, I'm being activistic with my weight loss. So it'll always be known that I was huge. But it's like, that's up to the person. I don't care. You don't have to do that. You don't have to, it doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter to me. That's more like a choose your own adventure kind of thing. But I don't think it's good to like be really, really anxious about it and like, but you don't have to ever talk about it, if that makes any sense. Again, de-emotionalize the situation. That's my advice. De-emotionalize, de-emotionalize, de-emotionalize. It's not emotional. It isn't.
They are still up there, and that is also a problem. And there is a real just lack of compassion. I think it's because
there are some people who are hyper competitive that want the body hierarchy. There are also people like you who are really invested in being on the bottom of the quote unquote body hierarchy. I don't believe in it. I don't agree with it. I want it to be dismantled. I want it to be easy and available for everybody to be in shape. And if that's the case, then the hierarchy's gone. That's my goal. So I understand that there will be some people probably in the future that are in the fitness sphere that may be upset with me later, because I'm going to continue to work to make it more available to more people. That's a part of my activism. That's one of my goals. It's because I don't believe in the body hierarchy. I don't think it should exist. I think it needs to go. The way of the dinosaur, it needs to go. But how that happens is making being healthier easier and more understood and more available. And part of that, and what I'm working on this year, is the mental side of it. Because a mental prison, it can really keep you in it for a long time. Whereas last year I talked a lot about the hormonal side, with the most common being hypothyroidism. Who knows what I'll cover next year? Let's see what happens next, right? You never know.
The weight loss community, because the way that society treats fatness is so rooted in shame and a real lack of empathy. It is incredible how many people understand now.
You realize that a lot of people just don't care at all. I think if she understood that, like if she realized or understood that, it would break her brain. There are a lot of people, Hannah, that do not give a crap about fatness at all and never think about it. I want you to know that.
There are genetic, biological, like medical, socioeconomic, mental health, like all these things, all these aspects to being fat, There are all these like...
Yeah, and you can tackle every single one of them, and then you don't have to be fat anymore. With extremely, extremely rare exception, and even in those cases, it'd be best to manage it to the best of your ability, because those issues will be overcomplicated by being bigger. Still better to be not as big.
Unavoidable aspects that you just got dealt a hand different to a thin person.
You are so invested in this, and I want that to be gone. I want that mindset to be gone. I want all of that to be gone. Anything rooted in physical reality that contributes to that, that's my goal, to get rid of that. On every single level. Because I don't want the body hierarchy. It's stupid. But you want it. You would die without it. You wouldn't know what to do with yourself. You wouldn't know.
People know this. People understand this. And yet, they will say, it is your fault, you're lazy. Right?
I wouldn't say that you're lazy. I'd say that you're delusional. Legitimately. And I don't mean that in like you just say it. I'd say you're actually psychologically delusional. And you need to find reality. Because it's dangerous. That's what I would say. And I know it's harsh, but again, it has to be stated because this isn't a safe way of thinking. This is insanity. This is like a path of self-destruction. And I know, I can tell by how she is. She's so in it, you guys. And you don't want to be like her. You don't want to be in it. And if you're struggling to get out, reject this stuff in your head. Reject it. It's not real. What she's saying is false. This isn't real. And I honestly do hope that she gets out of it one day, but I can't stand that she is pushing it on people. And she's trying to reinforce it in people like you. It's awful.
It doesn't matter like how much we understand that actually it's really not the personal responsibility of
No, it really is. It really is. The further we get away from that, the worse the issue gets. Clearly showing that you're wrong. You are wrong. The root of it, even in the worst possible system, I do think we should work to improve the system in a lot of different ways. But even in the best of systems, in the most ideal society, if a person does not take personal responsibility over their obesity, they will still be obese. Unless if they are literally being forced to starve. Which I would never support a society like that. I think that's awful. So no, personal responsibility is a part of it. It doesn't matter if there are programs available if somebody doesn't take the responsibility to do it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if things are available if you won't take it. There are things available today. There are things to do today and you don't take them. So you think that if there's more stuff, you're suddenly going to do it? Bullshit. It's your responsibility. I'm sick of this. So sick of that. You are so wrong. Wrong.
the fat person the way that maybe we believed it was like 30 years ago.
No, it still is. It always will be. It's up to you to fight your issues. It's up to you to fix the hormonal problems to the best of your ability. Most of this stuff is shades of gray. Even if you can't be perfect, you can still be better. You can still improve it. And when it comes to toxic ritualistic mindsets, we don't tolerate it. It's a zero tolerance policy. You have to fight it. You cannot be complacent with your delusions. You can't. They're too sticky. They're sticky. If you don't fight it, it won't go away. I'm telling you. This stuff is so dangerous that she's saying. It really is. It's awful. It's so awful. And I'm sorry that it's pissing me off, but I'm getting mad. Legitimately.
But the way that society treats fatness is so rooted in it being a personal and moral failing. And we need to...
You're so rooted in it not being your responsibility. That's what it is. It's a you problem.
Reach a point where we have compassion, where we, as fat people or as former fat people, have compassion for ourselves and for other fat people, where we can look at someone who's lost weight and not think that they have betrayed.
I think it's just you. Because I can listen to other people and I don't get this pissed. So I think some of it is the stuff that you say and your attitude and how you are. Because it's really irritating me. I'm just going to say that.
The cause, but also not feel
Betrayed the
hated
cause.
by the
What?
other fat people, where we can look at someone who's lost weight and not think that they have betrayed the cause, but also...
It's just called envy. That's jealousy. It's bullshit.
not feel hated by them, you know? We need to reach a point.
Yeah, well, I think you need to work on your own standards and how you're treating people. And you might get a different result. I know it can be hard when you're really, really big. I get it. I've been there. I've struggled with relationships at that size of all different kinds because it's very hard. It's hard to explain this if you've been in it, but you can reach a point where you feel like an alien or something and you can't connect to people as well. And you feel so desolate in that. And I will say, as I've lost the weight, I have been able to start adjusting relationships and I can see things more from another person's point of view. And so I have a lot less issues. So I would suggest to you, maybe think about the other person's perspective in a real way, not in this bullshit projection-y way. Like when I think of your perspective, I think of somebody who is completely locked in a disorder. Locked in it. And that's not the part that makes me mad. Because I feel you. I get it. I was there. I so was there. That part I understand. What I don't understand is you trying to spread this. You're trying to push it on people. That's evil. Because even in the worst of my despair, in the worst pit of this disorder that I was in, I never, ever was evil enough to ever want anyone else to go through anything similar to what I was going through. I wouldn't have wished it on my worst enemies. And you're out here and you're doing it. You're pushing it. It's evil. That's an evil thing to do. And I can't sit here and be nicey nice all the time with someone like you. Because this is evil. You know the pain you live with. Why are you trying to spread it? It's evil.
Where we can feel compassionate for people, where we can understand that there are a plethora of reasons that they got to where they are, and we could feel real empathy.
Well, why don't we feel for a solution? If you actually care, then you would help push people towards a solution. You're not doing that. That's not helpful. I don't sit here and just talk about BS every day. I'm trying to help you guys find a solution. I'm trying to spread awareness about these issues so that you can further think about it and think of even more solutions. That's the beautiful thing about activism. I want it to change. That's the whole point. You're sitting here trying to enforce it. You want it to stay the same. So you are in direct opposition to my goal. You don't look for a solution. You're not helping anybody. You don't care about anybody. Oh, this is so evil.
For those, and we could feel real empathy for the challenges that we know they experience because we have experienced them. We understand fat phobia.
And we should experience that. We want it to end. How about that? How about that? What a wild concept.
And all the challenges that come with being fat, and we would not wish those on our worst enemy. So why, when you've lost weight, do you want to inflict those on other fat people when you know what it feels like? And why, in the addiction community, is that not happening? It's because they are nurtured and there is compassion and they are taught to forgive themselves. So, show yourself compassion. Show yourself forgiveness for being fat because it's not a crime. You didn't do anything wrong.
She doesn't want you to lose weight. Okay? This whole thing is a fat enforcement. That's what I'm going to start calling these people. Fat enforcers. This is a fat enforcement campaign. Don't listen to her.
And then try and extend that to other people. You are going to be so much happier if you have lost weight and you still hate fat people. I can promise you that whatever fleeting happiness you feel about the fact that you are fitting into like size 10 jeans now and that other people are complimenting you on your looks, that is not going to last forever unless you can fix how you feel about yourself, unless you can forgive yourself for being fat in the past, unless you can have compassion for yourself and the suffering that you went through as a fat person and extend that compassion to other fat people.
I don't agree. I think there's a lot of people who are happy about fitting into a size 10 pair of jeans, and they probably still hate fat people. I'm not saying it's good to hate fat people. I don't agree that it is. I'm just saying the connection isn't there, because not everybody sits there and compares themselves to everybody to such an extent that they externalize their experience onto every single other person. They don't. A lot of people just don't care. You know, as I've lost weight, I don't look at super morbidly obese people and I don't see myself in them. I don't. I see them as a human being. I see them as a totally different person. So they probably have different experiences. They might even get there in a different way than I did. Even if they got there in the same way that I did, they probably have totally different triggers. It's a totally different set of circumstances that they're living in. I don't know. All I can say is the one universal that I have is that if you're having that E followed by the letter D in your brain, I have a lot of experience with that. And I can see it really easily when it's being stated in videos like this. And I will fight it because it's wrong. It is wrong. Okay? That was wild, you guys. Remember, fatness is not a part of your identity. Okay? I will talk to you guys again tomorrow. Goodbye.